McIntyre, Minister for Finance, Economic Development, Social Security. Honorable Kozia Frederick, Minister for Environment, Rural Modernization, Karinago Upliftment, and Constituency Empowerment. Honorable Julian Defoe, Minister of State in the Ministry of Agriculture, Forestry, Blue and Green Economy. Honorable Darren Lloyd, Parliamentary Secretary in the Ministry of Environment. Mistress Lydia Capitolin Toussaint, the Acting Chief. Mr. Ryan Ansem, the Permanent Secretary within the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries, Blue and Green Economy. Heads of Division of the Ministry of Environment, Rural Modernization, Karinago Upliftment, and Constituency Empowerment. Ms. Hill, Enhanced Direct Access Project, and all the members of the project office. Mr. Imran Kofi, the Housing Manager. Ms. Norma Anthony, and other Ministry of Environment and Forestry Division in particular staff. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the media, it's a considered privilege and pleasure to welcome you to today's official launch of what we call Output 4 of the project. Is spearheaded by the Green Climate Fund Enhanced Direct Access Project Office within the Ministry of Environment, Rural Modernization. And the objective of this program is for the express purpose of strengthening local capacity for ensuring that institutions and the people at the household level that the climate readiness of the structures and property can be within up-to-date readiness. And for us this afternoon is really the moment to celebrate involved in the process. Without further ado, I would wish to call on Ms. Kelso, who is to give us an overview of the project. Ms. Kelso.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. This presentation today. I'd like to recognize Honorable Roland Ray, Acting Prime Minister, Honorable Dr. Irvin McIntyre, Minister for Finance, Economic Affairs, Climate Resilience and Social Security, Honorable Kozia Frederick, Minister of Ministry of Environment, Honorable Julian Defoe, Honorable Darren Lloyd, Parliamentary Secretary in the Ministry of Environment, Ms. Lydia Capitolin, Mr. Ryan Ansem, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries, Blue and Green Economy, Heads of Department at the Ministry of Environment, Rural Modernization, Karinago, the EDA project, Mr. Imran Kofi, Housing Manager, Ms. Norma Anthony, Forest Officer, staff of the Ministry of Environment, ladies and gentlemen. Let me just say that today is another good day. It has been a long time coming, and we at the EDA Project Office and the Ministry of Environment are very excited to be here today, because today is the official launching of the mission. In 2016, the Green Climate Fund announced a pilot initiative for enhanced direct access with the objective of the pilot being to allow the fund to effectively operationalize its enhanced direct access modality at the subnational, national, and regional level through public and private entities, presented a joint funding proposal to the GCF. The project, entitled Integrated Physical Adaptation and Community Resilience through an Enhanced Direct Access Pilot in the Public. This was approved for funding by the GCF, the Green Climate Fund, on March 1st, 2019. This project was proposed in response to the request for proposal issued to meet the stated objectives of the request for proposals, namely to enhance country ownership of projects and programs by developing decision-making has been implemented in 3 OECS member states, namely Antigua and Barbuda, Dominica, and Grenada. The Department of Antigua and Barbuda is the accredited entity to the GCF, and the Ministry of Environment, Rural Modernization, Kalinago Upliftment, and Constituency Empowerment is for the implementation of the EDA project activities in Dominica. Cabinet advised approval of the signing of the subsidiary agreement on June 25, 2019. And the Ministry of Environment, Climate Resilience, Disaster Management, and Urban Renewal, now the Ministry of Environment, Rural Modernization, Kalinago Upliftment, and Constituency, that which will be implemented in Dominica. However, our focus today will be on Component 4. Before we get into that component, I will provide a brief overview of 1. Seeks to establish transparent decision-making processes and build a capacity. Under this component, the Project Management Committee was established. Projects selected on the component Change Committee and endorsed by the Project Management Committee. Component 2. An award of US $3 million in grant funding towards targeting ecosystem services, that is to restore, protect, or strengthen the covered drainage systems and to improve resilience of watersheds. The goal is to re-establish forests lost by climate change actions. This was submitted by the Ministry of Environment, Rural Modernization, Kalinago Upliftment, and of Forestry Division, A grant amount of US $336,000 is available to undertake that activity. And this was through the Ministry of Public Works, Public Utilities, and Digital Economy. The project will improve the drainage capacity of the section of the road to Dominica's road safety standards through the clearing of landslides and blocked earth drains and constructing and replacing drainage infrastructure along that route. The grant amount is US $827,464.40. Project number 3, Disaster Risk Management. This was submitted through the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries, Blue, and Green Economy. The project focused on reducing the impacts of natural disasters, improving preparedness, and integrating disaster risk management in the agricultural program planning and execution exercise. A grant amount of US $1,012,540. Ministries are currently awaiting the final approval of the EIA, SMPs, and GAP reports, which were submitted to the Department of Environment and the Green Climate Fund last year for review and approval. Output 3. Community resilience to climate impacts is enhanced through tangible adaptation benefits. The Global Environmental Fund Small Grants Program was selected and approved in March 2021 and has worked successfully with the project team. This component demonstrates enhanced direct access for civil society organizations, community-based organization in community buildings that promotes resilience to droughts, floods, and hurricanes. US dollars 1.8 million was made available for small adaptation grants. Projects of up to US $250,000. They were evaluated using established transparent criteria used by the GEF and the GC, undertaken by the service provider, the National Climate Change Committee, and approved by the Project Management Committee for the EDA project. Disbursements of one and reports received. The third disbursement will be processed upon completion of the works by the various organizations, hopefully by the end of June. 6 grants were of existing communal and public good building structures, such as shelters and community buildings. The 6 grantees are St. Peter's, that's EC. Southeast Community Emergency Response Team, in collaboration with the Lapland Catholic Church, received so far $282,261 EC dollars. Salisbury First Baptist Church and Gospel Hall received $403,938. Monrachet Development Committee, $456,994. Atkinson Design, $102 EC dollars. Component 4. Our focus today is on Component 4 of the EDA project, which focuses on privately owned physical assets of vulnerable populations are more resilient to climate variability and change through concessional microfinancing, involving loan program for adaptation in buildings. The Government Housing Loans Board was selected and approved by Cabinet as the service provider in March 2021. However, this was due to financial issues experienced by the accredited entity. Funds were eventually made available in February 2024. Under this component, individuals up to $75,000 US dollars or 200,000 EC at an interest rate of 2% to undertake various adaptation interventions. The chairman over the past few months to get where we are today. The EDA Project Office would like to take this opportunity to thank and the board for their patience, cooperation, and commitment to seeing the implementation of this component through. The EDA project would also like to thank the Green Climate for the new experiences. It was indeed a steep learning curve for everyone involved. Service providers, the various ministries for your patience and cooperation, and especially the government and the rest of the EDA team. We are still small, 3 number. However, we are not daunted by the task ahead and are moving steadily ahead with the implementation of the full implementation of the EDA project here. Thank you for listening.
At this time, I want to say good afternoon to you and welcome as we bring you live coverage of these events here as the Ministry of Room. The PS Blackmore is the one chairing today's program.
Of why we're here this afternoon, and it's because of the fact that we all should be very cognizant of the fact that we have made a country in the world by 2030. One of the key result areas that we recognize we must get it right in order to process. It's not a journey. That we understood very early on that we have to have and to build very strong communities. with much pleasure, remind you all that most of the public servants are first responders whenever one of the extreme weather event will hit us again. We know it's a situation, a condition we have to live with, so we have to make sure we're well hardwired. And one of the ways of doing that is to ensure. So it's by no coincidence we have with us this afternoon the chairman of the Government Housing Loans Board, Mr. Felix Thomas, who would share with you his own comments and I guess extreme pleasure in why we are here this afternoon. I call to the podium now Mr. Felix Thomas to give us his remarks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, P.S. Blackmore. Let me mention the Honorable Acting Prime Minister, the Honorable Dr. McIntyre, Minister for Finance and Economic Affairs and Climate Resilience, Honorable Darrell Lloyd, an officer, Mr. Ryan Ansem, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries and Blue and Green Economy. And I heard you, Ms. Kelsher, actually gave my outline already, so that is good. Also, the head of departments of Ministry of Environment, Rural Modernization and Kalinago Upliftment, Mr. Imran Kofi, Housing Manager. Pleasant and good afternoon to each and every one of you. Let me apologize for being late. I wish I were Joseph, the young son of. In fact, and indeed, it's not so with me at all. Over the past maybe 4.5 years, members of my immediate family are not too well, and this afternoon, in fact today, my friend have to give that daily care, and have a daughter seriously suffering with lupus and conditions not good. Of many sorrows. But this afternoon, I believe would bring some smiles to the Dominican public, some life and so as it relates to the green climate funds, as it relates to public officers and the general Dominican population by extension. Let me, as Chairman of Government Housing Loans Board, it would be remiss of me not to inform you as to what the Government Housing Loans Board is all about, hopes to administer. But the Government Housing Loans Board is a body corporate established in 1957 with the sole purpose officers who at the time were on the establishment who were desirous of building homes for themselves and their families. Interest rates, those of you who are of the age like Mr. Blackmore and the senior men of the table would know that when you had to contract a loan from any of the financial institutions, biggest challenges that you had, and that interest rate was at sometimes 15, 17, and even in certain cases 18%. The Government Housing Loans Board was to be that sort of buffer, but they had to borrow from the banks and on-lend to public officers at a reduced rate, which was still, and with the advent of the austerity measures, and that there were several public officers who had contracted loans under that institution, and the austerity measures that mandated some 5% in reduce of wages, we had the enviable task, so to speak, to seriously consider some reduction and relief to public officers. With the assistance of the Minister of Finance the Honorable Prime Minister and Minister for Finance, Mr. Honorable Rosemary Skerrit, we were able to adopt an agenda of serious borrowing, even under austerity measures by the World Bank and the financial institutions. Because at that time, it was additional pressures on public officers who had their loans and even those who were contemplating building homes for themselves. The Government Housing Loans Board undertake that serious responsibility, and to make a long story short, have reduced that sort of rate, starting from a reduction from the 11.5% to 9%, down the road to 8.5%, down the road to 7.5%, down the road to 6%, and down the road to 5.5%. This brought a lot of relief. But in addition to that, there is no such thing as low-cost building, because you do not control the cost of material, you do not control the cost of labor, and these are things that continue to climb every day. So the Government Housing Loans Board was given the task of seriously addressing again these high interest rates. And housing, as we all know, is one of the prime necessities of life. And in addition to that, you give any young man in your country, you allow him to have a home that he can call his own, you will have the vast majority of your young people staying back to work and develop your country. And this is not fairy tale, it is a proven fact. So we had certain challenges because the banks are concerned of making interest, and we were only by a lot of recommendations had to be made, and I want to thank the entire cabinet of the Labour Party administration for realizing that changes and amendments had to be done to that act. We were able to borrow from other financial institutions at much reduced interest rates, and to date, cooperation of the Honorable Minister of Finance and Prime Minister, well over $300 million that we were able to grant loans to public officers. The advent of Hurricane during the period of Hurricane David, maybe many of you all were not born at that time. Were you born yet, Mr. Blackmore?
Of course.
You see? So we did not learn the lessons from David, and there were some still bad practices in construction. Not because people wanted to adopt monies and interest rates, as I said, a big deterrent. And we are faced and challenged by these climatic conditions, not every 10 years, but yearly. And as I said, housing is an essential part of human society of life. How could you allow or afford for public at an affordable rate and a cost that is conducive, or an interest rate that is conducive? But it came on in following Hurricane Maria, insured, and some of you who maybe would have suffered that the insurance would tell you that you were underinsured, and the amount that you would get to repair your home was still insufficient. And that would be granted to the Government Housing Loans Board to on-lend at 2%. So that actually started, I think, Ms. Kelshel, the Green Climate Fund, or gave them the initiative. Right? But in addition to that, looking at certain categories of public officers who are below a certain salary or income, they would not be. Mark you, as I say, your salary could be $10,000 or $10 million, and Mr. Blackmore could be drawing $2,000. He's better off than you. It's not the salary scale that you have. It's the, let's say, $5,000 or $6,000, but his light bill is higher. He have to use transportation and other things because his cost of living is much higher than the person at the lower income bracket with. So we try to level interest rates that everybody could be comfortable with, an interest rate that is conducive for building, construction, and proper homes, implementing proper building practices. So we were able to draft up a program that was funded. In fact, at that time we said, let's take it to the Libyans, let's take it to the Cubans. Well, Cuba had no money at that time. Let's take it to the Chinese, let's take it to the Venezuelans. And we received well over $49 million that enabled the government to grant monies, make monies available to the Government Housing Loans Board to on-lend to public officers at 4%. Here we are, all with housing. Today, as I speak, I wish to say that today was 5 years ago, that it was really 5 years ago. However, I would have to live by the saying that it's better late than never, and patience, because let me in fact first take the opportunity to thank the board and the members of the Government Housing Loans Board, before ending off with them, for their support throughout this process. It was in the year 2018 that a request was made, as was outlined by Ms. Kelshel, and I will not go to repeat that, all of the components of that output. Revolving fund for private homeowners geared at financing climate adaptive and environmentally friendly domestic projects. Having put all being plain sailing, but it was not so. But however, as the saying goes, it's better late than never. On February 26, 2024, we received a first sum of EC $1.3 million, and have already disbursed a total of EC $1.1 million. As I always say, that I compliment the staff of the Government Housing Loans Board. They have worked and they demonstrated that following Hurricane Maria as well. That office was maybe the only office or semi-quasi-government office that was never closed. It was like the port, because we realized we had to deal with real situation and that situation of housing. But from the time that that project was initiated, all the preparatory work had been done. Visit sites, calling people, discourse, look at their projects, brought persons from planning on board, brought in assessors, and ensured the necessary groundwork was made, that as soon as that money would be made available, it would be shooting off from the barrel of the gun right away. So that is why we were able to spend dollars in such a quick time. But it is, how should I say it? It is customary. It is a practice of the Government Housing Loans Board. When we first negotiated an amount to reduce interest rates of over $35 million and an additional amount of $24 million to grant loans, in less than 6 months, every single penny was spent. Because in the construction industry, it creates a lot of employment, it creates a lot of economic activity. And in addition to that, it makes your nationals, it makes your people have a sense of belonging, a sense of ownership, because they have something they feel that belongs to them. It's not only to say, I am Dominica. In fact, they own part of Dominica. And we have adopted that sort of policy of ensuring that all the necessary groundwork and preparations are done, that all monies can be executed. Sad but true, too many times within this scope, that large sums of monies have to be returned to various institutions who have granted monies to us. And that challenge was posed at a meeting that I had and the Antiguan counterparts. Because of the delays, not because of our fault, but they felt that to disburse the money at that time would not be wise. And the Green Climate Fund would request that money back. So I gave them the challenge and I said, you just put us to the test. Are you satisfied, Ms. Hilda? You have access. Let me say the Government Housing Loans Board is clear, it's transparent, it's open. You know, you can go in there, ask for information, not people's private information, but as to how we operate. You know what, because we have a growing list, you know, of persons, of applicants. And who are, your hand is up. Can I say, or your home in order, then that is good. So here we are, that we have executed what have been delivered, and many persons have taken advantage of that, a more climate resilient building. You know, I want to give the assurance that the Government Housing Loans Board will continue to implement every aspect of this component in the best interest statutory bodies, but would do so who are targeted recipients of that facility. But as I say, I'm not a public servant, you know, and sometimes certain public officers at the top find me rough because I speak directly. Is that true, Mr. McIntyre? I'm a rough speaking person. Documents and paperwork done. And we can lose out, you know, on essential projects that can greatly assist and help in the general upliftment over a little issue amending an act, you know. And truth me, maybe sometimes I'm rude because you have to extend to that. But when I meet with persons who show a different picture, because it did not take myself and my former peers more than 1 hour, and I think I called you on the phone when I left that meeting with that particular peers. An hour that took us over 5 years. We should have over $60,000 million from the Green Climate Fund because Dominica deserves it. We are seriously the most affected country in the world. If it's not one, it's another. And I just want to urge the ministry that is responsible for that everything on the Green Climate Fund to help secure and improve and make Dominica and best and most climate-worthy country in the world is a dream that comes true and a reality in practice and in effect. Having said that, let me shut my mouth. As if you speak too much, you might say too much. But let me thank each and every one of you, you know, for allowing me the opportunity to vote.
Thank you very much, Mr. Felix Thomas, the Chairman of the Government Board. Of course, we realize that the effort or the initiative is one that is very broad, since it's seeking to bring about properties, could be the structure, it could be the services. And I say services because we all know we live in a time when the now generation get totally bothered. It's not available. And so under this facility, it also affords the Government Housing Loans Board and public officers to be able to assess relation onto their properties. So the opportunities are endless. I would really urge all public servants to really be very cognizant of the facility and to ensure we really make use of the funds that is available to us. You heard Mr. Thomas asking for the second tranche. And on that note, I think it is an opportune moment to bring to the podium someone who I know is very passionate and an ardent doer in ensuring we have a better environment, of which the built and normal and natural environment is important. Honorable Kosi Frederick to give us some remarks.
Thank you very much, Piers Blackwell. So first of all, the Acting Prime Minister, Honorable Roland Roy, Dr. McIntyre, the Minister of Finance, Honorable Julian Defoe, and Honorable Lucian Blackwell, P.S. Ryan Anselm, Mr. Felix Thomas from the Government Loans Board, Ms. Kelshell, the Country Coordinator, also Michael Savre, who is the GCF National Program Coordinator, who sits within the Ministry of Finance, Director of Forestry, Mr. Burton and his team here, Mr. Eamon Coffey from the Housing Division, Housing Manager, other heads of the department, Miss Honorary from NEP, the staff of the Forestry Department. Ladies and gentlemen, Mabrika from my native town. We know that physical adaptation to resilience is important for our country. It's so important because we are on the trajectory to become the first climate resilient country. And so building resilience, because they help us to withstand and recover in a timely manner to major weather events. And these events also include pandemics, and also the Dominica government, the Dominica Housing Loans Board, will ensure that the public servants, I better say servants, have homes that are more resilient, and so comes back quickly, and we will be able to see a reduce in the amount of damage to those particular massive and important investments. Also, social cohesiveness, and for sure it will encourage cooperation and facilitate, I believe, collective action, and it will help us to all. Now, overall, the investments in physical adaptation and community resilience are essential for long-term sustainability, and also, so this is evident in our East Coast Road we're doing right now, in our HRP, the Housing Recovery Project, the houses in Cotton Hill, in Bellevue-Chopin, the EU-funded homes in the Salbia constituency, that we as a government deem very, very important. I spoke to social cohesiveness. We know for a fact that building infrastructure alongside our resilient initiatives fosters, especially trusts within the communities. We also realize that there will be an enhanced adaptability, because we will integrate physical and also community resilience together to ensure that within. We also know that in so doing, we are able to have a number of sustainable solutions, and it's exactly what this project is targeting. And at the end, we're able to have major economic benefits. But they will on a move to ensure that we will build more than 5,000 resilient homes across the national space, and also to build homes for people who are most vulnerable. But we also, in a timely way, we'll have service continuity. It simply means that if they have good homes, they'll be able to continue to function when there's a crisis, and also they will be able to maintain their roles, because they are important cog in the machinery of governance. So that's the first piece across the Dominican context. And so we have public servants in the urban areas, in the suburban areas, and also the rural. If they are able to be safe and secure, that can be transmitted to the others within the community, and it will help to build some trust and system. Also, in essence, we're really ensuring as a government that our employees are taken care of. The well-being of our employees are important. And so, if an event happens and you have a leaky house, and you're asked to report to duty, how do you do it knowing that you are? So the connection with the Housing Loans Board is so important. The history of the Housing Loans Board is also important for us to understand, what has transcended various major issues. And as the ministry responsible for the environment, we want to ensure that that we continue to support agencies who have this sort of leaning to help. Goals of the project itself, we will ensure that that the monies that can be accessed will be used for a number of things. We realize that water management is an important part in the entire scheme of things. And one of the reasons we have a lot of plastic on the island too, because we bring a lot of bottled water, because our streams were destroyed. Kudos to the WASCO who timely responded, but with 365 rivers all modeled with trees and rubble. And so within the context of the loans, civil servants can get access to do all of that, rainwater harvesting, to manage the irrigations for the yards, etc. The concept of smart building is also important in all of this. How do we build smart? And so new technologies are important. So civil servants can really smart up their home. How do we do the covering of our homes? The green roofing is important. Green gardens, and we're also looking at how do we treat the flood control. There's some parts of the island where we don't. The investments and the loans can go towards those things. How do we elevate homes and ensure that they are not flooded over, and how do we reinforce what already exists? So this, in a sense, is how at a very reasonable rate, managed for transparency operations, and we're hoping the call is on the public servants to really believe you're a critical part of the core of governance, and that your work cannot be discounted, and your safety and security is important. But I also realize as a minister on the international field, what we're doing is also important, because when we're doing this project with the Housing Loans Board, we're really targeting some of the what they call the SDGs. Dealing with poverty in some sense, because when you have a better home, it has more value, and even when you look at the vulnerable people with the HRP homes, they now have a home that costs more than $150,000, that costs more than $300,000. So in terms of the SDGs that we talk about, almost in a very flippant way, easy way, we are doing this in this particular project. So I want to highlight this a bigger asset, a bigger value. I realize also SDG 3 is targeted as well, because it talks about good health and well-being. Just being in a good home, in a safe home, you're good health. I see my brother there for one is SDG 11, because I realize it speaks about sustainable cities and communities, and that's critical. How do we, as a government, target people within various demographics to deal with those? And so SDG 11 really talks about making human settlement safer, more resilient, and more importantly, more sustainable. And so we know for a fact that resilient homes contribute to this goal by ensuring people are safe. One of the things that is also dear to my heart is SDG 13, which speaks to climate action, the bigger scheme of things. We know that we're not belching waste into the atmosphere to destroy the ecosystems, but we get the backlash. We're the front line of climate change. So that's where the patterns, disastrous storms, flooding, irregular rainfall. We have shifting of our normal hot and dry season. So in a sense, we will provide within this project the public, especially as relates to reducing vulnerability to environmental risks. So our government will continue to work to contribute to the socio-economic development, create space for better investments. So we can speak now to our international airport and the new homes we're building in the Wesley area, for example, and how good infrastructure to ensure that more of the investments can come into our island. And so this is I think is so important for us. And so in the final analysis, I think the fact that we are contributing to the housing stock and ensuring that we go through a process that is very transparent really speaks to our government commitment to continue to empower those who serve at various levels, but also create an avenue for a better and more resilient country. In all of this, we realize that housing as a staple, as a basic need, is taken care of not only for the most vulnerable of us, but also for those who have major responsibilities and who have made investments on their own and who just need the additional hands up to ensure that they also become part and parcel of our country's development. And so I'm very happy as the Minister to push this project forward. I want to thank the project team, Carol Shah and her small team, who have been pushing this project on, and also sort of big up the folks at the Environmental Department in Antigua who've been carrying us on. We're hoping soon that we will have our own to the Ministry of Finance, and so we'll be able to, like Mr. Thomas said, the man of many colors said, how do we access the GCF funding that is so critical for us, because we do would really allow us to access those funds. But we as a government have to create all of those build a proper credit and a proper perspective on this. As we speak, we are coming into the hurricane season. I know it can be a very stressful time for people. And when I speak about people, the public servants are no less than those who really get affected at the community level. So once again, I want to thank you for being part of this thing. Thank Mr. Thomas and the work here, and also the work done with the GCF. And we want to thank the colleagues who are here that we could do a little dent in that bigger move to ensure that public servants do get a piece of the pie in being in resilient Dominica. Thank you so much.
Thank you too as well, Honorable Frederick, Minister responsible for the environment. I don't think it's by any coincidence that you mentioned the fact that economic aspect of the home, and everyone here looking at the age group should be very cognizant of the fact as well that homes and real estate are some of both the social as well as the economic, and one of the key factors we're paying very careful attention to is to ensure that we could dampen or socioeconomic shocks that we usually sustain after extreme weather events. And so we know we recognize that we want to do so through social harmony as well as economic prosperity and a well-planned and durable infrastructure. And of course, residential estate is part of the built infrastructure. So it's by no coincidence we have the next person coming to the podium, who is the Minister, and even more relevant this afternoon, climate resilient. It's an honor to call to the podium Honorable Dr. Irvin McIntyre to give us his remarks.
Thank you very much, PS. Let me first recognize Honorable Roland Roy, Acting Prime Honorable Kozia Frederick, Minister for the Environment, Honorable Julian Defoe, Honorable Darren Lloyd, Lucian Blackmore, Permanent Secretary, Mr. Ryan Ansem, Permanent Secretary as well, Mr. Felix Thomas, Chairman of the Housing Loans Board, Ms. Hilda Kirchhoff, Country Coordinator, Green Climate Fund, Heads of Department to recognize Mr. Michael Savre of the Green Climate Fund and Ms. Honore from the members of the media. Ladies and gentlemen, pleasant good afternoon to everyone here. Well, obviously, the Ministry of Finance must be involved. The Ministry of Finance, Economic Development and Climate Resilience and Social Security is the national designated authority for the Green Climate Fund in Dominica. With this mandate by the Ministry for the Environment, Rural Modernization, Kalinago Upliftment and Constituency Empowerment. We are therefore pleased to see 4, which will provide affordable 2% loan financing for housing resilience, is now being launched. We recognize and appreciate the tireless efforts of staff within, in collaboration with the Government Housing Loan Board, in the realization of this component of the EDA project. To this team, we hereby express our deepest thanks. Given the impending hurricane, this will indeed be a delight to those homeowners who will be in receipt of this support. The NDA calls on the Ministry of Environment, other line ministries, the private sector, NGO to realize, as we seek to realize the very ambitious national GCF country program of projects. We have collectively developed these projects, which are listed for all to see that at least an additional 2 of these projects will be approved by the GCF towards the end of the year 2024. These will include Dominica Community in collaboration with the Caribbean Community Climate Change Center. This US $24 million project will address local community-based climate resilient actions, hurricane shelters, early warning systems, capacity development, and training. The second being approval for the national financing vehicle towards the end of. This is anticipated, among other things, to scale up concessional financing nationally for climate resilience, like we are witnessing here today with component 4 of the EDA project. The United Nations Environment Program, and Conservation International is looking towards June 12, 2024, when an inception meeting will be held with the stakeholders to develop a US $40 million integrated coastal zone management project for Dominica. The concept note and project preparatory funding has already been approved by the Green Climate Fund. This project, we anticipate, will deliver critical resilience to our coastal communities as we advance towards national climate resilience. We are also looking forward to an inception meeting on June 20 of 2024 with national stakeholders for the commencement of a mapping exercise. This is first part of a climate resilience urban development initiative, which is done in collaboration with the Ministry of Housing, Urban Renewal, Community Climate Change Center, and local stakeholders. Let me end by once again thanking the Ministry for the Environment, Rural Modernization, Kalinago Upliftment, and Constituency Empowerment for their tireless efforts in implementing this GCF EDA project. You may be well aware that of the stakeholders that we are currently engaged with in developing additional projects to continue and enhance our collective collaboration. It is by this collective approach we can ensure the realization of these projects as we continue our march on the road to national climate resilience, and obviously being the world's first climate resilient.
Thank you very much, Honorable Dr. Irvin McIntyre, for your very fitting comments indeed. So I guess everyone here and the listening public can understand the interesting mix of so many different ministries involved in this very critical project to ensure it becomes a living fruition for every one of us. And so we have with us the distinguished presence of the Honorable Acting Prime Minister, Honorable Roland Royer, whom we'll call to the podium to give us his address. Honorable Royer.
Thank you, P.S. Blackmore. Good afternoon all. Let me acknowledge our Minister for Finance, Dr. Irvin McIntyre, Honorable Koza Fesrick, our Minister for Environment, my colleague, Honorable Julian Defoe, Honorable Darren Lloyd, PS Blackmore, of course, PS in the Ministry of Environment, PS Ryan and Slem, Mr. Felix Thomas, Miss Hilda Kelshell, I'm seeing the Director of Forestry, Director of NEP, Michael Savre, our CPU, the housing manager as well, other heads of department, forestry staff, members of the media, good afternoon. It is a pleasure and privilege to address you on the continued commitment and tangible actions of this government to ensure that our country meets its goal of building resilience and strengthening capacity to respond to climate change. The government of Dominica is extremely pleased to continue its collaboration with multilateral development partners, and in this case, the Green Climate Fund Enhanced Direct Access Facility for undertaking physical adaptation and mitigation measures for enhancing community resilience. Under Output 4 of the Green Climate Fund Enhanced Direct Access Facility, very concessional microfinancing is being made available to the holders of privately owned physical assets to mitigate the vulnerabilities confronting those properties and to create resilient communities to climate change. Climate resilience is one of this government's top priorities as we endeavor to secure a sustainable future for our people. I'm therefore honored to stand in solidarity with the other two OCS member states, namely Antigua and Barbuda and Grenada, which are also seeking to address the threats to their natural and built environment posed by climate change under the similar GCF EDA facility. I'm pleased to note the objective of this output, which is for 100 vulnerable homes or household to use fund-supported microfinancing to respond to climate variabilities and projected climate change through adaptation in private building assets. It is also significant to note that approximately 40% of these are female-headed. This component targets the building sector and will be implemented through the Government Housing Loan Board and the service provider. The Government Housing Loan Board was approved as service provider for this output by Cabinet in February 2021, and I take this opportunity to encourage those who qualify to take advantage of the services offered by the Housing Loans Board. The board has proven to be a reliable option for homeowners seeking to undertake new construction or make improvements to their homes. I want to commend Mr. Felix and his team for their conscious efforts to grow the board's portfolio and assist citizens to make their home ownership dreams come true. I wish also to underline the very concessionary terms of these loans, which are being provided at a rate of 2% of persons working within the public sector. Rates can be further lowered for persons in extreme poverty and or persons with special needs under the care. No single loan shall exceed $200,000 or 5% of the entire portfolio of the revolving fund program. An award of $5 million for loans promoting resilience to droughts, floods, and hurricanes is available to public servants to undertake small adaptation projects with tangible benefits to their private homes. This component will seek to demonstrate enhanced direct access in the public sector through concessional revolving loan program for adaptation in homes for persons employed in the public sector. The main beneficiaries from the implementation of that component of the GCF EDA project will be homeowners in the public sector and will receive a maximum amount of EC $203,768. An initial amount of EC $1,344,100 was received by the GHLB, and funding is currently available for access by the public sector for promoting resilience to droughts, floods, and hurricanes. You will agree that these all sound like very attractive terms and conditions. You will have heard also of the specific activities which qualify under this grant, and I urge public officers to look into the specific area that apply to your personal circumstances and seek further information. We want our citizens to take advantage of these opportunities because building resilience at the individual and community level will help strengthen our country's overall response to climate change. As we look to the future, it is essential to recognize the critical importance of having secured and protected homes for realizing resilient communities and for achieving socio-economic well-being and sustainable development. The building of strong communities and well-planned and durable infrastructure are essential prerequisites for combating climate change. The government of Dominica remains committed to prioritizing these efforts and working with our partners to safeguard our natural and built environments, and in particular the quality of life of our people. I extend my heartfelt gratitude to the GCF EDA Regional Secretariat, the in-country GCF EDA Project Office, the GHLB, and the people of Dominica for the unwavering commitment to a climate resilient Dominica. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, Honorable Royer, the Acting Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of Dominica. Since we are very tangible people, we like graphic display. And so we want to show this afternoon is no play, we have no joke, it's serious business. The brother of one of the honorable ministers at the head table will tell us so. So it's Mr. Felix Thomas, who would be handed the check, the symbolic check, by the Acting Prime Minister. It has to be a photo moment. So, maybe
launch of the components for the Green Climate Fund Enhancements Direct Access, and we heard from all the speakers how beneficial this is going to be to the public servants in particular. And we have Mr. Felix Thomas, who has been working with the Dominica Housing Loans Board for many years, and so the symbolic gesture of the check presentation is going to take place at this time. The officials will pose for the cameras. This is captured by the 3 cameras in the house, media houses here as well, and Mrs. Gershel holding this huge check. We'll hand it over to the Acting Prime Minister, who will then present the check to Mr. Felix Thomas, the Ministry of Environment, Rural Modernization, Kalinago Upliftment and Constituency Empowerment, Green Climate Fund Enhancement Direct Access Project. The check is a huge one and the hands are unable to reach maybe because the check is so huge they'll have to do it somewhere on top. Exactly. Government Housing Loans Board, $1,344,100. The Permanent Secretary signed this huge check, Mr. Lucian Blackmore's initial on it. And so this is going to go towards enhancing the livelihoods of the people of Dominica, particularly in the area of housing. As we know, it's the government's plan of making Dominica the first climate resilient country in the world, not only with resilient houses, but in other areas. Back to P.S. Blackmore, who will wrap up today's proceedings.
let's take time off to recognize, first of all, Honorable Roland Royer, the Acting Prime Minister, for really dignifying this presentation today with his presence. Thank you, Acting PM. I also want to recognize almost, we could say, half size of cabinet here this afternoon. They speak tremendously. I mean, we're very deeply indebted to the honorable ministers for making this good turnout this afternoon. I think it's a good signal to the rest of the nation how important it is in our process for going forward as a collaborative entity. I also want to take the time off to recognize the presence of the Acting Chief Personnel Officer, Mr. Capitolin Toussaint, all the other heads of divisions that are here this afternoon, Mr. Thomas, and I also want to convey our highest regard to the rest of the Government Housing Loan Board. We are here to work with you collaboratively, and we heard the Honorable Irvin McIntyre made that pronouncement continuously. It's a collective collaboration in ensuring that we get it right with our hardwiring or readiness in terms of having climate smart initiative in this country. I also want to say a heartfelt thank you to the media who have always turned up here in large numbers. Kyrie FM, DBS, and we don't want to forget, of course, GIS, who is one of us. Continue to give us that kind of support. We really want to ensure the reach out is there, everyone knows what is happening. And as was rightly said this afternoon by all parties, especially the minister responsible for the environment, we really want to ensure that we give careful attention to ensuring that the first respondent, and we know in reality most of the public officers, whether it's the police officers, the firemen, prison officers, people from the Office of Disaster Management, even while the storm is passing, they have to be out there doing what they have to do. So I know I had experiences as well when I came out after Hurricane Maria, but I cannot say on television right now what some of the reactions were. So I am really elated and happy and satisfied this afternoon to know we are taking this other layer of support and lower protection to ensuring our public officers are safe and sound after an event. I want to say thank you to all of you for coming this afternoon. Of course, for our listeners and viewers at home, we say a very good afternoon to you and happy weekend. Thank you, everyone.
Cast here from the conference room of the Division of Forestry Division. And thanks again for watching, thanks for listening, and my head technician who ensured that we got the best quality, both visually and of course in audio on all FM frequencies. Thanks again for watching, thanks for listening. We heard from a number of officials, and we do trust you will stay tuned to Cairo FM. Don't forget to join us on a Sunday when we bring you live coverage of the second in a series of cycling races. That's from Marbois Bar to Layo and back on Sunday beginning from 9 o'clock.